The Central Bank of Nigeria has issued directives stating that all point of sale, that is the POS terminals, must be geo-tagged by October 2025. It's a move aimed at curbing fraud and tightening oversight in Nigeria's booming digital payment space. Nigeria has over 1.5 million POS agents nationwide. These terminals have become lifelines for cashless transactions, especially in underserved areas. But with growth comes risk. Fraudulent terminals, ghost devices, clone machines have infiltrated the system. Some have been linked to scams and ransom payments. The CBN says geo-tagging will help trace every transaction to a physical location. But what does geo-tagging really mean for everyday Nigerians, for small businesses, and for the fintech ecosystem? Is this a leap toward transparency, or is this a surveillance overreach? Joining us for this discussion is economic analyst Stanley Onuorah. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Good to be here.
So let's start with the basics, geo-tagging. Geo-tagging of the POS. In basic terms, in layman terms, what does geo-tagging mean and why is it necessary?
So geo-tagging is from something called geofencing. So in geofencing, it's more like creating a perimeter. You know how you have your house. So the typical Nigerian houses, you see that you have your fence and then you have a gate. So it's somewhat doing something like that on the digital space. So when that is done, it creates that this house that is owned by Olive is just located here. You can't move the house. The boundary for this house is just within that space. Anything outside that most likely belongs to somebody else or is another portion that is not within that perimeter. So what that does for you for geofencing is that it has numerous applications in terms of security and then in terms of even things like fleet management. You know, where you have like big companies say you can't leave a particular area. It creates a sort of, say, a boundary for anything that you want to do within the period. So for the average Nigerian that's looking at it, they're saying, okay, what is geo-tagging? Are they going to, is it that they want to create a tag on myself? No, it's just to create a tag, a perimeter fence around whichever place that you're serving. And CBN has said it's going to be 10 meters. So away from that, your location, 10 meters away from that place.
It will not work.
You're going to be flagged.
So if, let's say it this way, if, let me find the right.
Somewhere in Ikeja.
Mommy BC is doing POS.
Yes.
And she's in Ikeja bus stop. It simply means that she cannot leave Ikeja bus stop with her POS to go to Ogba. It will stop working.
Yes. So now this is in collaboration with the NIBSS, and the NIBS, yes. So what they are saying is, if you have created your location at a particular spot, Mommy BC cannot take her terminal and move over there. Now, this is a new directive, and I feel like there will be modalities around it that would come up. But for what we have now, as it said in the 10 meters radius is not something that you can move past. What you're saying is that it's going to be flagged. We don't know if it will stop working. But what we know is that it is going to be flagged. So what that does for you is that if you say you have a transaction that is outside the radius, it can be flagged as this is not the regular transaction that this person normally occurs. So it's easier to say, why is this person having transactions outside this place regularly? Maybe it could be explained. Maybe it could be said to be like other form of business, and maybe, you know, they could create like another location for that business that, you know, is tied to still the same person. It makes more sense. So, but for saying that it might stop working, it can be disabled, because typical geo-tagging, when you geofence a particular spot, you can create a boundary and say that anybody that goes outside that radius, and you can just disable it. But for now, what we know is that it's going to be flagged, and those transactions that are going to be reported, you know, will be reported as a flagged transaction.
Okay. So another question would be if this has been thought through and what the potential implications of this might be. And I ask because remember when the CBN tried to introduce the new Naira notes policy, we asked if it was going to cripple the economy, especially because it had happened in the 1980s. We didn't seem to learn our lessons from that. And the same fears that we had about what will happen when people were sleeping outside of banks in the 1980s when this happened, it repeated itself again. Now Nigeria has two currencies because we've not been able to successfully carry that out. There also, as a result of that, there was, because the CBN, of course, they're trying to go cashless. Yes. And part of the disadvantage of that is that a number of people now have to start depending on PoS. PoS operators became very famous at that time because people couldn't get cash within the bank. Yeah, well, exactly. So people couldn't get cash within the banking halls, even though they'll tell you now, oh, we'll go to the bank and collect money. People still depend on PoS operators for money. So the question is, how will this affect us? Is there a potential that this might affect us economically and financially, especially those who are largely dependent on these POS operators, the POS terminals to be able to get money? Because they'll go back to the banks and they still may not be able to access money. So for
economic stability, I think the association of, I've forgotten their full name, AMB, I've forgotten their full, the guys that handle, the association that handles POS and electronic transfer, they have an association. So they came up with this and came up with like a request to the CBN to make sure that this policy that they have, this directive that we come out with, that is well handled so that they ensure that this sort of thing doesn't occur again. We have over 1.5 million terminals. Now, there are a lot older terminals. If you read the directive from the CBN, it said that the minimum for Android devices is Android 10, I think 10, the version 10. Now, for older terminals, which are mostly, you would find them mostly in supermarkets. And, you know, like, for the guys that have had like those older terminals, those ones are like a whole different. But for the guys that are giving out cash in terms of, you know, agency banking, that as we know it, a lot of them have newer terminals. And I think this is more directed at them. Because what we have seen in recent time is that we've had cases of things like kidnapping and, you know, robberies and all. And then when you trace back these transactions, and kudos to, you know, the Nigerian security network, as much as we commend them and feel like they have a lot on their hands, when it now goes into things like this, people can tell you that, oh, this person just came to withdraw money from me. I don't know who he is. But if you then have things like this that are well implemented, if I have a transaction that has been flagged away from your location, this tells me, because if you check the reporting, if you check the policy that was, once you're going to be reporting, you're supposed to be reporting each transaction with the location. So that's a new policy now. So you're going to be reporting your transactions with the location. So that's why it's easier for them to say, this person has moved away from this location consistently, or this is the coordinate that we're saying that a security operative can go and pick up download your transaction history and say, we've noticed that this coordinate that we've seen on this location is somewhere around Sambisa Forest, as opposed to you living in Lagos mainland. So it's easier for them to implement those security checks as regards to security. So I think on that front is actually a laudable directive.
Well, if you say so, but then again, there are stories that when it comes to cases of kidnap, oftentimes when ransom is about to be paid, there's a POS machine and so on that they have to swipe the card in the POS machine and then they get the cash X, Y, Z, and so on. And could we say that this is the more reason why this is necessitated in terms of it's being put out there for them? Is this the only reason? Or is as a result of the fact that there are so many POSs out there, so many. And sadly, because of lack of job, you have our young graduates also jumping into it. So what's really the basics for this? And personally, you've been doing this online as online banker. You've been teaching Nigerians, telling them, listen, let me explain what this does. I mean, that's your cliche, let me explain, right? So can you explain to us carefully how this would, in other words, impact the POS person herself? We hear that there are charges now, extra charges. Is this something we need to know as well?
So for, you know, like I always say, calm down, let me explain. So for this, for the average Nigerian, I don't think it's just there's a security front on it. But most importantly, is for accurate reporting. So you have terminals that are spread across the country. Can you point, as a regulator, so let me ask, if you're going to be I'm looking at the CBN side. So as a regulator, can you tell at every point where each terminal is located? If you do not have something like this, you can't accurately say. So it presents a potential problem and risk to you that, as an operator, that they ask you for 1,000 terminals that are located in this place,
and you need to account for them.
You can't account for them. So either you need to call the service provider, or you need to reach out to the merchant, or you need to reach out to the guys that are, that are configured. Just a whole lot of that. But you should have an accurate reporting of where your terminals are, the kinds of transactions that they carry out, and how around what location those transactions are carried out. Now, back to your question where you asked if this was just purely, and I think that people are saying, as I say, are they trying to create are they trying to limit the number of people that we know that in the space, so that you need to have like multiple terminals and all? Those are comments, those are backhand comments. Because if you look at the actual data, when there are still other ways that people can go around this. If I'm not using my PoS, I can still receive money with my wallet. I can still receive money in my account and still dispense from a terminal that's located in still that same spot, if I can confirm it by phone call. But most importantly, I feel like this will help reporting, and then that reporting still comes down to, providing adequate security for the framework.
Is there any concern about how this might impact those living within rural areas?
Yes, I feel they are the ones that the consideration needs to be put across the most. Because some of them, if you go to places like in the north, like, I come from the north and then I have a lot to do there. So if you go to places in the north where you have 1 or 2 people that service a large community, and they need to move to a very great length for them to access things like this. But that's where I feel, because I just mentioned that this directive is fresh, and I feel there will be modalities around it. It should state that this is going to be a flag transaction away from the spot. If you then have geo-tagging, which is a brilliant thing, you have the GPS coordinates, and you're saying, why are you going to XYZ area every Saturday
by 10
a.m.? And you are dispensing nothing less than 200,000, anytime you go there, who are you giving those 100,000 to? So it's easier for you, so you can see from a reporting side, it's easier for you to come out and say, okay, this person is carrying out such transactions in certain locations, and for whatever reason that is being carried out, you can.
I think it was very important for us to speak about those in rural communities, because unfortunately we're in 2025, but there are a huge number of underserved communities, people who are financially excluded. And if these people that we even convinced and are still convincing to open bank accounts, because some of them rather trust under their bed or inside their piggy box, and now they finally opened up with the few mobile money providers, and now they have limited PoS agents that are serving multiple communities. How we can regulate that might be also a cause for concern. But also another cause for concern would be it feels like there's so many measures that have been put in place to ensure that we prevent fraud and we can limit instances like kidnapping and the likes. We've been asked to do registration for NIN, BVN, I can't even count. Every other day we're hearing about one new registration or another. This one feels like another measure. Is this a measure that the CBN can say would act as a standalone, or are there maybe some other supporting measures that need to be put together to ensure that we can actually guarantee, or does this just feel like one of the regular new policies that organizations put forward to make it look like they're working? Do you genuinely believe in this policy?
So for for this, I try to shy away from the concern that everyone thinks is just security. I'm looking at it more on the reporting side. So if you're going to have accurate reporting, and they said they are moving to the ISO 20022, and they are saying we want to have like a standardized reporting format. I'm looking at it from that angle. So if you as an institution want to up your reporting to an international standard that is globally recognized, if you look at it from that angle, yes, it's fantastic. Then the implication then comes out to what other things. If I'm reporting accurately, it takes care of security, like we have mentioned. Like the likes of BVN and all the others that we have, and they say it's to check this and check that. To be fair, it has had its own inputs. Like it was a typical example that BVN has given us in the past few years was, before now, then people used to go and register corporate accounts and go to banks. And then when they go to banks, they open multiple accounts and run those accounts. And then go and try to take loans on those companies because the legal entity is different. I know they had like a lot of funny things that people were doing behind until BVN came in and automatically stopped some of those things. So it has its own. Can they do better with the information that they have in terms of biometrics that we have and across the security? Yes, they can. But are this new policy, new directives still going to help strengthen those? Yes, it will.
All right.
Anyway, as we look to wrap up this conversation, I also want us to touch on one of your videos. By the way, if you're watching us, you can check him out on Online Banker. He gives regular updates, especially about the economy and yourself. Banks resume international transactions on Naira cards as dollar supply rises. I tried using my card, you know, Woko. You know what?
So I don't know if you're going to call. So this is very important. Yeah. The banks have come out to say that the cards are going to, that their cards are now working. And we're still having people, but fair to them, I don't know what bank you use, but just 4 banks were the ones that give out this notice to their customers that their cards are going to be. But I have information that one of the banks is still not working and that they came out to their customers to say. So if they're listening to this, it's a feedback to them, and if they need people to go and take an extra step, they should have made that known. So for example, before now, you needed to activate your card for it to have, for you to have access. But typically, everybody just wants to make payment on, electronic platforms, pay for subscriptions that are less than $2, $5, $10, and people are not able to make them. So, the fintechs are eating the markets in that regard. But we hope that as the dollar supply keeps increasing, all the banks come on board pretty soon.
I mean, we're still battling with that. Our contemporaries are doing swipe to pay, tap to pay. So we have a long way to go.
That is coming.
How soon?
That is coming. It is here already. To be fair, it is here already. So I know of a few platforms that currently have that. Yes. So
are you serious? That I can pay with? I can tap my mobile phone.
So
to pay?
a lot of your terminals are So I want everybody to, if you're watching, look at your card. You see something somewhat like a wave on your card. Once you see that activated you see that on any terminal, it says that you have the NFS. You can just tap to pay.
So if somebody steals my card now?
No, there's a limit. So there's the modality for Nigeria is that once you tap, you still need to put your PIN. That's for Nigeria.
Better.
I think that's the.
It's better.
That's for us.
Olive, don't be sure, because if they catch your card, so you tap.
Yeah. So what I feel that they can do much later is that some of those other banks might create a different this thing where they can easily, just a small figure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they can take.
I don't know if that's true, but I did see a video this time around. I haven't witnessed this. Video of someone who had his card imprinted in his body and had to use his hand to pay. Is that legit technology?
Yes, it is. So in China, you can use your palm to pay.
It was in China, exactly.
Yeah.
He used his palm to pay.
You can use your palm to pay. So yes, it's something that can be done. At the point where we're still at the tap, and you can use...
We have not yet gotten to tap. They are still introducing the tap. until we can see even the basic things we've not been able to conquer. So we have a long way to go, but definitely our fintechs are making progress.
Exactly.
Our banks also are coming up, and we have a long way to go when it comes to financial inclusion. But the good thing is that work is being done behind the scenes to ensure that we have financial access available to as many Nigerians as possible. And I think the final question is, how ready are we for a cashless Nigeria?
I think we've been ready for. I think Nigerians are pretty smart people. I say that not because I'm Nigerian and that I'm trying to promote Nigeria, but I think Nigerians are pretty smart people. If you check on the front of things like cryptocurrencies, the adoption, the way the Nigerians adopted it as compared to even countries in the West, tells you a lot about the savviness of the average Nigerian. Aside the people that are in the rural communities that do not have access, but even in the rural communities, when these things get to them, they latch onto them as fast as possible. We can go cashless, but are the infrastructure for us to go cashless, are they trustworthy? Because that's what we had in terms of when we had a cashless policy and people needed to go on full on terminals as opposed to going to cash, and we saw the breakdown. That gave rise to
the PoS operators
that came up, and some of these fintechs that came up with fantastic innovations. Some people are in business today because of that policy. The Naira redesign. Some people are in business. Some two major ones are in business today because of that. So they will everly be grateful for that, Mr. So that problem,
that disruption
created an opportunity that they latched onto, and they have what they have today as a business.
I know we said finally, but this is finally.
Finally.
We really wish we could have you more regularly. I'm also thinking a lot on top of my head, maybe a daily Monday morning economic talk with you, because investment.
All right.
Investment. So what are the 3 key places people can invest this month?
That's not this kind of conversation to wrap up.
Where can people just quickly buy one or two stocks?
So a lot of
Olive, you don't have.
I know.
You have 10,000 you're not using. Give me. Let me buy.
Are you talking about Naira or dollar?
Naira, dollar, anyone. Give me.
The first thing that you say, you don't give financial advice.
Exactly.
You understand? You don't give financial advice. But I would always tell everyone, look around you, look around the typical things that you use as an everyday person. You make calls, you eat food, you take transport.
I like what you did there.
And
for smart guys, you just give us a small expo.
So you do that on a regular. So it tells you that if you are doing that, 100 million Nigerians are doing the same thing as you, and that would have an import into the PBT of that company.
I see.
And you can do the rest with the
then you know what to do.
This is use your tongue to count your teeth answer. Stanley Onuorah, thank you for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you.